Hello everyone and welcome to my newest video on how to set up your SCIA Engineer. In today's video I will cover three topics where the first one will be how to set up the interface, and by interface I mean everything that you see right now on the screen. Next I will show you how to modify the pallets, and pallets are connected to everything that you see on the workspace, so it's over here. And last I will finish this video on how to modify the unit system and how to manage the units. So with this being said, let's start with today's video. Generally when you install new SCIA, this is how it is going to be defined. So this is the default interface of SCIA. So right now we're seeing 5 menus on the screen. The first one will be the input panel. Next we have the project data or the properties menu. Then we have the input table. It is hidden over here, so if you click on it and then click on the headline, it is going to hide. We also have the workstation section over here, and we have the toolbars for view and rendering over here. But right now they're all positioned on the interface, but we can modify their position. So to move on the menus on the interface, you should first go on the menu. So let's start first with the input panel, and then somewhere on the headline you should left click and start dragging the menu. Now when you left click and start dragging, you can see that there is a pink frame around the workspace, and if I move towards the corners or the edges, you can see that there is a blue line next to the corner. When the blue line is on, if I drop the menu, then it will pin position where I dropped it. So now this is pinned to the left side of our workspace. But I'm going to make this a bit smaller, so maybe this is very white, so let's make it something like this. And next I'm going to move this one next to the input panel. So again, left click somewhere on the headline, start dragging, and when we move close to the edge and we see the blue line, drop it. Again, you can modify the width of this one as well. The input panel, I'm going to click on this menu, but since I'm not using it frequently, I'm going to close it. So generally I will stop here. There is an option also to move the workstations as well as this menu, but it's a bit more difficult to do it. I usually do it with the right click and not the left click, and you will have to make more attempts. So let's start. You will have to click somewhere in between the lines, so let's start it like this. Yeah, so right click and you can drag it and drop it somewhere on the workspace, but I prefer to keep it in its initial position. So we have all menus in position, and now we can modify what we see in each of them. So let's start with the input panel, and if we move to the headline, now we can see 3 lines. If I click on the 3 lines, we can there are 3 modifications we can apply. The first one is the auto open, and this is something connected to if we are going to always see the input panel or on, or if it is going to automatically hide when we don't use it. But I don't like this feature and I never use it, so I will leave it like this. Next we have the icon mode, so you can choose between something that looks like a drop-down menu or icon mode, but generally I prefer the icon mode. And then we have the show category headers, and I prefer to have it on as well. So let's click somewhere else. Now we closed all three of them, and we can choose which tools to see into the toolbar. I usually prefer full toolbar, and for that I have all workstations, all categories and all tags on. So now I have all the tools available in here on, and I can scroll down and up and choose the one that I want to use. If some of the tags you're not interested in using, then you can simply expand it or collapse it on the arrows in here. And this is all for the input panel. Now let's move to the project data or to the property panel. So again, we have the three lines. Let's click on the three lines, and the first feature is the same as for the input panel. Then the next feature about the advanced mode, I think it will be easier for me to demonstrate what it means. So right now it's off. But let's select some of the elements on the screen. So let's start with this column. And now you can see some of the properties for this column, like the layer, the section, and etc. But this is all you see about its properties. Now if I go to the three lines and select the advanced mode, then you can see the full properties in here. So if I start scrolling down or up, you can see a lot more properties than before. So I usually have advanced mode on, and last we have the results auto refresh. You can activate or deactivate it from here, but it's the same to do it from here as well. Generally I have it off, so I don't do it automatically. I prefer to do it manually. So this is what you can do with the properties menu, and let's move now to the workstation menu. Again, we have the three lines, so let's select the three lines, and in here you can see all of the workstations that we see into this circle. Now the section for structure, we usually see it vertically in here, and all the other we can choose between. We are going to see them horizontally in here. To this I will also add my workstation, which is an empty workstation, and let's choose that one. But I'm going to add some extra tools that I generally use. So let's start first. Okay, let's escape to deselect the element. And let's start first by adding the show height mesh. So in here you see the show height mesh tool. I'm going to click on it, so it's a left click, and I will start dragging, and when I'm here I will drop it into the workstation section. Okay, let's clear this, and I will write generate mesh as well. Left click, start dragging, and now when I go close to this, you can see that there is an option either to add it vertically or horizontally. I generally prefer to add everything horizontally, so I will leave it like this. And maybe that's all that I will add today, but you can add as many tools as you like into this workstation. Now the structure workstation and all the other workstations that are active in here, you can see that they are predefined by the software, but if you don't like some of the tools that you see in here, or you need to modify, you can do that as well. So I generally take these two outside, so I just click on one of them and start dragging it, and I put it on the top, so in between the bin and the last tool, so I will drop it. So be careful, do not drop it in the bin. Then I go to the next one, I left click on it, start dragging it and drop it below. Now you can see that this is duplicated, so I don't need this tool. I will just click on it and drop it into the bin. And there is also a key. By clicking on this key, you can change the position. So instead of, or maybe reverse the position, instead of here, you will see the structure section in here. but I generally prefer it like this by default. So that's all for the workstations. And last we have the toolbars in here for view and rendering. And under 3 lines there are not many things that you can do with these toolbars. So the only thing, so maybe for some people it will be interesting, it's the min-max auto open. Maybe I'm going to select this so you can see that if I click somewhere on the workspace, now it is hidden, but if I pan under it, then it is shown. So this is all for the interface, and now let's move on how to modify the things that we see in our workspace. So let's go to the view menu, and now we can choose between all of these, but I will start with the color lines because all these tabs will be available in the next window. So under palette settings, we can change the settings for the things that we see on the screen, maybe the things that we see in the document and the things that we see into the graphical output. But be careful, all the same tabs you will see in each, so always make sure that you're doing the changes into the right tab. So first we have the screen, and I'm going to apply most of the changes to the screen. So let's see, right now on the screen I see the member system line with a very thick line, and I can change the thickness of the line. I usually prefer to use a thinner line. Maybe I can change the color of the force, so instead of, let's scroll down, so instead of red, I'm going to change it to green, and let's click OK. So now you can see that some of the changes are applied on the screen. I will go back to the colors and lines, and now you can choose to store these changes as user default for this tab. Everything that we change into the colors, you can save it. Maybe later you can load it on or you can load something that you previously saved. Or if you're not happy with the changes, that you can always load the program defaults from here. And this is everything for the colors and lines. You can also play with the style of the lines, or instead of full line you can choose between dashed line or any style that you need for the lines. But be careful, because right now we are working in palette, and the palette is new UI background. You can choose between 3 palettes, and all of these are already set by the software by default, and each of them has some characteristics. So let's switch to white background, and if I click OK, then we're going to see something completely different on the screen. Okay, so let's open the colors and lines, and let's fixate to the white background. So we will use white background, and all the changes we're going to apply will be on this white background. If I go back to the new UI background, then again I'm going to see the green force, yes, but maybe some of the other colors will be changed. So let's move to the fonts. Now we're seeing some fonts, so we see the size of the fonts for the beams. Also we can choose between the fonts. Right now we're using Courier New, but this is also something we can modify. So let's try to modify, like an example, I'm going to modify the beams. So instead of 2.7, let's put 2 millimeters. Then we can modify the add data. So the add data is something with this, so sorry, with, yes, probably, let's try it. I will put 2 millimeters for the add data. So the add data is in relevance with the forces, and then the beams, it's in relevance with the text that we see over here. And these are the results, so you can also change the size of the results that you see on the screen. And if I start scrolling down, something interesting is these custom styles. So the custom styles are connected to the dimensions. I think that this dimension is the first one is from custom style 1. Each dimension you can set from which custom style you want to use it. So let's try and change the font size to 2 millimeters, and maybe we can use another font just to see the difference on the screen. And if you want to change together more than one feature, then you can do it by selecting with Shift. So let's put, like an example, Arial font. Okay, so you can see that this changed from beams, this changed from add data, and this changed from dimension and custom style 1. Let's select the dimension, and I think that if you go in here, you can see that the font is taken from custom style 1. So you can change here from which style do you want to use. Okay, let's close this. And let's go back to this menu, and maybe this is mostly what I needed to cover for this menu. So also you have the structural types, but I don't do changes in this. Also we have the dimension lines, but this is something you can already modify in here when you select the dimension. So I usually don't do any differences or modifications in this menu as well. And the last tab is the results. And maybe for the results under 2D default results, I changed the palette size, and the palette size is the results that we have in the right corner over here, and also the text that we get in the left corner over here. So maybe this is interesting to change it as well. Okay. And if you're finished with all the changes, then you can save everything or store everything under user default settings. And when you click this one, so the difference between this and this is that this one will apply the changes only to the current tab, but this one will apply or store the changes from all the tabs over here. So again, we have the load default settings, and we have the load program default settings as well. Okay, so let's close this. I will accept the changes, escape to deselect everything. And the last thing I wanted to cover is the unit system settings. And first we have two things that we can choose between. So the unit system either can be metric or imperial, and I will leave it to metric. And then the units, so this is the general units of everything that you have into the project. I usually work in millimeters because, like I said, I work in the facade industry, but if you need it in meters, then you can change into meters. And let's see where this difference will apply. So if I select one of the beams and go to the length, now I see the length in meters. But if I change it to millimeters, then I will see the length into millimeters. Under manage units, you can find all the units that you need for the project, for the current project. Let's choose one unit. So again, the length in meters and millimeters can be changed from here as well. Also, we get to choose the decimal length, or how many decimals will each unit have, and also the type of output format, and you can choose between decimal, scientific and engineering. I usually set the ones that I mostly use, so I usually set the stiffness. Sometimes I set the loads depends if I work in newtons or kilonewtons, and maybe sometimes in others you can find the temperature and maybe set it to units Celsius, and everything else that you need to set. When you're finished with all the changes, like I said, You can always store everything under user default settings and later load it from here into a new project. Or maybe you can, if you're not happy with the changes, you can always load the program default settings. Now you can also create a file that you will have everything set. So later maybe you can load that file into certain project. But generally, if you store this by as default, then every time you open new project, so this is going to be the default, the one that is saved under store user default settings. Okay, so let's okay this. And if you're not happy with the interface, how it's set right now, or you did a mistake and something is not the way you like it, then you can always go to view and then go to user configuration and restore the default configuration, and that's how you will get the interface like it is originally by SCIA by default. Also you can save the current interface or maybe load an already saved interface. Maybe as a last, I will also show you how you can see the size of the add data. So you have it in here, you can scale it. So in example now we see the add data much bigger. Maybe you can scroll this and change the size like this. And also we have here the scale for the results. So that is all that I have prepared for today's video. I hope you liked it and thank you for watching it. See you in my next video. Bye.